Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on ASTV. It's the Coaches Parley. Yeah, we took a bit of a hiatus. We had to let Ryan Wood, recharge, hit the reset button. Look at that hair. Fantastic. Are you on stage? Are you on set somewhere with the Big Show or something like that? Or I know what it is. I watched your post earlier today. You have interviews for your 7 and under GM position. Is that right?
Well, I'll be honest with you. It was a nice honor to be asked to take over the GM role of the Downsview Penguins. I wasn't not really the GM. I'm just the borderline administrator guy that makes sure that everybody is registered in Hockey Canada and helps set a budget. We got a couple of young coaches, so just trying to help them manage the parent group.
And clearly that is one of the bigger headaches. I will recommend the 24-hour rule, where if something happens, reflected and deflected to the manager, don't come to the coach right away. Mike Stackhouse in the top corner with me. Mike, how's the summer been out in Saskatchewan? Lots of great things happen out there. Weather was pretty nice.
Yeah, nice. If you're a farmer, it probably wasn't great because it was so nice that we had some drought conditions in a lot of the province. I also spent some time in Southern Ontario, close to Ryan's neck of the woods. My son's playing football for the London Beefeaters. So
I didn't get a call either. It's my old alma mater near Western University. So I had to tell Mike about Seeps and Barney's and Jack Astor's and all the different sights and sounds of London, Ontario. But Ryan, I'm in the same boat. I didn't get a call either.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, no. So where are you, Ryan? You're Toronto, right?
I'm in Barrie.
Oh, you're in Barrie. So I'll be passing by there. I'm going down again at the end of the month, flying down but driving back, and so maybe I'll stop in Barrie. I said when we drove down, I actually said that once you hit Barrie, you're officially in Southern Ontario. That's when the traffic gets bananas. And
correct. Yep.
I'd be
100%.
lying if I said I didn't actually love it, because I loved it.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely different
faster
than being
pace
in Saskatchewan. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot faster pace.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. 100%. Mike, how's the little guy doing in London? Is he homesick? Is he getting fed well? How's he playing?
No, he's doing okay. He's kicking field goals and extra points for the Beefeaters, and they're a pretty good football team. So he's kicking more extra points and field goals. But it's a wonderful city. It reminds me an awful lot of Saskatoon, to be honest with you. And it's I had the pleasure of being there when it was 40 degrees, and for some that's too hot, but I love that weather.
I love London. I love Western. Spent 4.5 great years there, and we'll never forget it at all.
Yeah.
Ryan, with your new job or your new position, hockey sticks in the budget for you for the little guy? He's not asking for the composites yet. He's still sticking with the woods?
Buddy, I just dropped $125 on a Bauer Vapor whatever. I got a deal on some True Sticks, and the kid doesn't like them. I'm like, you're 7. Like, take what you get. But high maintenance, I guess. It is what it is.
Yeah, TPM 2020 Titan with the red and white lettering and the plastic bottom back in the day. So it was used for ball hockey and ice hockey at the same time.
I remember getting a stick from McDonald's, and I taped her up and gave her a go. Like, I miss the old Woody sticks. Yeah. You break one of those for $32, your dad ain't going to be a happy camper.
But you break a $1.25 one, that's a whole different story altogether.
Oh, my God.
No
I can't believe
it. In the dressing room, boys. Got to keep it clean. Keep it clean.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. I want to thank everyone for watching here. Let's get right to it because, we've missed actual regular season hockey starting on time for for 1 year at least, and abbreviated seasons all over the place. But the headaches haven't stopped for when it comes to teams and organizations. Ryan, you can attest to this right off the hop. As a GM and a coach in junior hockey, this has got to be the most fun time of the year, but the most exhausting time of the year, trying to finalize rosters. Junior hockey players go east, west, north, south, up a division, down a division. You get parents calling you, why my kid's not playing? And it's only 3 games into a season. Tell me the beauty of, managing and looking at the hockey program from afar now, but then really getting your feet wet and really getting into it.
Well, I think it depends on the league that you're in. Some of the leagues, especially the ones out west, they have, a decent exhibition season, which it allows you to evaluate talent a little bit better. Where some of the leagues here in Ontario, it's basically show up to camp in August and, you're basically getting going right away, right? So it's nice to have that evaluation process on a couple of kids, especially ones that, maybe you thought was a little bit better than what they were, and then you get them into some real game action and they look good in practice, but the physicality and all those things, they start to shy away, and then you go, oh, maybe this isn't what I thought I was getting, and then you got to kind of reevaluate the whole roster and determine what the rest of the league has too. I mean, you may think that your roster is competitive, and then you look at everybody else and you go, oh man, maybe I'm too young. Maybe I need to add some age. Maybe I need to find a better goalie. Like you're always tinkering. And that's the one thing that I always did as a GM is I was constantly tinkering based on where we were and what we could do based on the other teams in the league, because there's always going to be a team that's better than you. So you've got to set your bar and figure it out from there. And I mean, it's an exciting time. I loved being at the start of the season and building the roster and then getting into the grind of, getting on the road games and seeing the camaraderie start coming together and the boys start to, become a cohesive unit. It was a lot of fun for sure.
Mike, do you think that the bubble last year in March for the East Division, the Western Hockey League, was a feeling out exhibition, pre-exhibition for these East Division teams in the Western Hockey League?
Yeah, I mean, it could be, there could be a little bit of that for sure. Although, I think what was it on, like Brandon did pretty good in the bubble, and they're losing like 10-1 in the regular season here. So yes and no. I think, we had talked about it, I think, back in June or May, whenever it was. And we were talking about, teams getting, an ability to possibly evaluate talent for this upcoming season. So I think, there was some of that where they could maybe project back in the spring what they might have here in the fall. And then, as Ryan mentioned, there's more of an exhibition season and stuff like that. So, an exhibition season feeling out, a little bit. I think more than anything, everyone is just so happy to play that they just played. And now we're in a situation where, I think, in the Western League more than Ontario, they probably had their rosters hypothetically set. But then, as Ryan mentioned, you always get that surprise in camp and whatnot. But I think, more than anything, I think, last year or the spring, whatever you want to call it, everyone was just happy to play. And now, it's definitely not normal, but it's closer to normal and closer to what, all the teams are going to be. Like, don't forget last year too, Peyton Krebs and some of those guys, have drawn a blank on some of them, but guys that were playing junior that maybe, wouldn't be in junior, or guys that were playing pro, like Cole Perfetti, didn't have an Ontario league to go back to. So there was some of that going on that you're certainly not going to see this time. I think you're going to see players playing in the league that they should be playing in, as far as a pre-COVID hockey world is concerned.
You certainly brought up a point, Mike, where you looked at, the original question of looking at players coming back. The Western Hockey League started their regular season several days ago. Brandon, for example, had 4 or 5 players return from their NHL teams down back to Brandon when they were still losing those games 10-1, 7-2 sort of thing. And the Ontario Hockey League is going to be feeling the same thing, but the season hasn't started just yet. So that kind of gives them a bit of an opportunity to get their full team together. When it comes to the chemistry of the players, is there a lot to really be done at the junior level, or do they kind of know exactly what to do? They fit in stride. Just the fact that they have to worry about their conditioning is the most important thing.
Well, you're asking Ryan might give you a completely different answer, but I place chemistry and attitude and body language and camaraderie and how everybody's getting along. That is almost as important to me. And I actually, in the case of some players, that's more important to me than how good you are. So you're going to get an answer from me on chemistry and camaraderie that you might get a totally different answer from other guys. But I think, that's something that you're always trying to build toward. I think the good teams, very little separates top teams. When you get 3 or 4 or 5 really good teams, the teams that are pulling in the right direction, that are doing it for each other, that respect their coach and want to do it for their coach, those are the teams that, in my mind, are going to excel. I mean, you often hear stories about, well, we didn't like coach so-and-so, but we really respected him. Or, you'll see some of the, like you'll go to, banquets and you'll hear former players speak about their championship teams and just how close they were. I mean, that's not an accident, and they're not blowing smoke. And, for me, on teams, to do well, you need good players. But I can tell you, if I'm assembling a team, I'm not hesitating getting rid of a player that, for whatever reason, can't fit in with the rest of the group. And sometimes that's a favor to the player. I mean, sometimes it's just a bad mix for whatever reason. I mean, if you've got, like I talk about, my son on a football team. Well, he's the only guy from Saskatchewan playing on that team in Southern Ontario. So sometimes that, when you get, those big geographical differences on junior teams especially, it's tough to fit in. If you've got a, like Winnipeg is a really good example. You got a junior A team in Winnipeg, and most of your guys are from Winnipeg, and then all of a sudden a guy from Fort McMurray comes into the team. It's not an easy transition for that young man to fit in. And so sometimes it's not necessarily because the player is a bad apple or whatever the case may be. It's just not a good fit. And you need to have, good fits on your roster. And sometimes it's bad attitude. Sometimes, like I say, for whatever reason, it's just not a good fit. So for me, chemistry is something that you're working on all season. It's not something that, you sort of look at the beginning of the year and go, I like it. And you stick with it, because then there's a lot that can happen over the course of a season too. But you mentioned the guys coming back. And I think, at the major junior level and the minor pro, it's not bad because they're older and it's a very, very high level. But when you start talking about junior A teams, so if you get a guy from, if you get a hockey player from Yorkton, Saskatchewan, and he's playing junior A hockey for Fort McMurray, and he's a late cut from Fort McMurray, but then there's a team in the Northern Ontario League that wants to pick him up. That's quite a move for the family involved and for the player that's involved. If he's an 18-year-old rookie and he's made the commitment to go all the way to Fort McMurray from Yorkton, and all of a sudden, he feels pretty good about it in the summer, and he thinks he's going to be on the team, but then the Oil Barons get 3 guys back from the Western League, and now all of a sudden his spot is not only in jeopardy but eliminated entirely. It's quite upsetting. It's upsetting for the player. It's upsetting for the family. It's great for the team that wants him in Northern Ontario, but that's a big move, for an 18-year-old to maybe go from, say, a Fort McMurray to Marathon, and that can be hard on everybody. So I think it's challenging. And then, of course, with all of those moves, there's a ripple effect. And, when the player ends up in Marathon's got somebody that they got to move out. And where's that young man going? Is he going to another junior A team or a junior B team, or is he maybe an underage player who's going to go back and play, what do we call it now? U18, whatever it is that we're allowed to call it. You know what I mean? So there's a big domino effect sometimes, even when it's just one player involved.
The domino effect that Mike has talked about, Ryan, I want you to add to that for me with regards to, developing the relationship with other organizations above and below the team you are working with, and how important it is to, make sure if situations arise, you can provide not just homes, but opportunities for players to continue to play at a level that they're capable of.
Well, when I was in Kirkland Lake for the 2 seasons I was there, I mean, it was crucial to make great relationships with junior A teams out west. I mean, I made deals with teams in Saskatchewan and Alberta and even BC where they'd have a younger player that was like an 18-year-old. That was like a bubble kid for them, very close. But they had too many 20-year-olds, or they just didn't have a spot for him yet in that particular season. And I built great relationships with coaches that trusted me, that knew, and I did this with Southern Ontario teams and the OJ as well. come and play for me for a year, develop, get lots of ice time, and then go out west to your normal spot. And you know, a lot of the teams in the Noj would get upset. They would go, "Oh, well, it sucks that this kid's leaving. They should just play with us for 4 years." And the fact of the matter is that there's a chain of command, sort of say, when it comes to, you know, which leagues in the CGHL are, you know, 1 to whatever there is now, 1 to 7 or 8 different leagues. And every league has something to offer. Every league is different. Every league is, you know, a major junior development league. There's others that are drop downs from major junior that come in and play as 19 and 20-year-olds. But overall, those relationships that you make with other coaches that have stockpile of players that are not going to overcharge you for them, that are going to trust you to bring them in for a year, develop them, and send them back polished and ready to go. I mean, that was what I tried to do with all of my guys. And whether it was to, you know, the BCHL Alberta League, the OJ, send them down south to the North American League, when those kids would move on to those leagues, I was proud and happy because they moved on to, in my opinion, what was the next level of hockey and created a more of an opportunity for themselves to go play Division I hockey. And hey, don't get me wrong, some of those kids came back to me. They tried it. It didn't work out. I got to have them back, which was okay as well. But at the end of the day, you cannot stop kids from having those opportunities, and you need to ensure that relationships are made with other coaches so that you can have talent in your pool, because there's not 20 hockey players in Kirkland Lake that can be on my team. There isn't. There's a AAA program that I'd be lucky to get 2 or 3 kids that were talented enough to be in there. And like, I know the NOJHL is a very young league this year. The talent level is not nearly what it has been in the past, and a lot of that has to do with they don't have as many Americans in the league.
Certainly, one of the issues that teams are facing is the border, but also players just coming back to the same notion that is hockey coming back the way it was supposed to. I mean, right. Ontario kids got used to playing with hitting again all of a sudden, and whether or not they've remembered how to. So let's take a quick break. We're going to talk about parity with ages, and there's also this idea of showcases and whether or not we will eventually potentially see cross-border, cross-provincial showcases in the future to come. So stay with us here. Coach Parley, right back. Quick wetting of the whistle here. Final topic discussion. Gentlemen, we've seen a lot of different styles of showcases provincially, a lot of different ideas put forth for young kids, 14, 15 bantam players, U18 programs, junior programs, all getting an opportunity to get back on the ice. But we're also seeing showcases during the regular season. The AJHL just had theirs. BC Hockey's doing theirs next month. Manitoba, Saskatchewan doing theirs. Ontario will have theirs before the end of the year as well. We asked this question last year. Do you think we could start seeing cross-provincial showcases to see what type of talent there is? And I'm going to caveat that with a second question, not just for the upper echelon teams, the ones that are finishing first and second place in the division, but what about the younger teams and giving them an opportunity to showcase their talents and potentially they might move the following year?
I think that if I'm a executive producer for a TSN or Sportsnet or amateursport.tv, I want to find a way from a business standpoint to get a Champions Memorial Cup style event with, the winner of the USHL or the top 2 teams, bring in, the winner of the OHL and the NA and BCHL, whatever. I want a championship situation, and I want that on TV, whether it be on ESPN or TSN, it doesn't matter. But from a business standpoint alone, there would be a lot of viewers that would tune in to watch a international between Canada, the U.S., Junior A leagues, the creme de la creme of teams. It doesn't have to be major junior. It could be USHL, North American League, BCHL, Alberta, OJ, whatever, CCH. I don't care. Whoever wins the leagues, let's have a 12-team little 1-month mini league where you play everybody once and you have a little mini playoffs, and it's like an extension of your season. And I think that those games would, number one, they would sell out venues depending on the venue that you do put them in. And number two, the TV rights, I think somebody would pay big money to be able to have those. And it would be a matter of setting politics aside, which, Mike, we both know that that's not always easy to do in this game. So, but if somebody thought financially and thought business instead of politics, holy moly, can you imagine what kind of viewership that would entail? What do you guys think?
Well, there's a few things here for me. I like the idea. I do. Here's a couple of other things that I think we're going to see, hopefully sooner rather than later. And I think COVID is a part of this as to why it's not moving a little bit faster. But in January, Saskatchewan and Manitoba get together and they have a showcase where each of the league has 3 teams and they play for the better part of a week against one another. It looks very much like the old Viking Cup that they used to have in Camrose, where they'd put all-star teams together from the leagues, and I think BC and Alberta is also involved in that. And they would get together and they'd have like a Memorial Cup style tournament. I think it was around Christmas time that they actually did it. And then the Viking Cup went away and there was nothing. And now Saskatchewan and Manitoba are doing this, amongst themselves. And I know that there is interest because there was talk the last time this event was held in, they did have it in 2020, right before the pandemic. And there was talk of involving other leagues. And I believe the Northern Ontario League was one of them, that they were going to have players from that league. And I feel like that there was another league involved. It might've been the Superior, but it also might've been Alberta. I don't remember it, but there was talk of expanding it from just the 3 Sask and Man teams, into a bigger format. So I think you will see it. How soon, I don't know, but I do think you will see it. The other thing that I have long proposed, and everybody thinks that I'm a nutcase for promote, and there's lots of reasons to think that I'm a nutcase, but what I always said is, if you're preparing these guys for the NCAA, and I would argue that might not necessarily be the goal of Junior A, even though I know that it is. But if that's what you're doing, then why don't you structure your leagues so that the guys are conditioned to play on weekends and you're not playing during the week? And also, why don't you structure your league so that you're playing some out of conference games as well? So if you're the Portage Terriers and you have a really good hockey team and you think you have a good shot of winning your league, wouldn't you want to know at some point during the season how you stack up against the team in BC or the team in, if the Fredericton Red Wings are the best team in the Maritimes? Like, wouldn't you want to know, where you're at compared to teams in other leagues? And so one of the things I've said is that, why don't you reduce the games played? And I know that there's you talk about business. They don't like to give away home dates because that's revenue. But if you reduce the number of games played, but in doing that, if you wanted to increase your fan interest, maybe the Flin Flon Bombers want to play the OCN Blizzard because they can't play them right now. They're in different leagues. But if you're the Portage Terriers, maybe you want to go out to BC and play whatever Kingpin team is out there, or maybe you want to play the Brooks Bandits, right? Yep. So why don't you have, say, I don't know, 6 out of league games that still count in the standings, but you're not playing teams in your league? And I've heard people say, well, okay, what if Portage plays Brooks, but then what if, what if Flin Flon plays OCN and OCN's got 4 wins a season and they pad their wins against OCN? Well, you know what? They can go ahead and do that. But when the playoffs come to pass, they'll be exposed for what they really are.
500 hockey team with me at the helm, just saying.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. They actually, they were good with you. I think, more than anything, I think we got to think outside the box. The other thing is what about and I'm just talking prairies right now, but what about a tournament, just after Christmas in Yorkton that involves Melville, Dauphin, Swan Valley, Wayway-Sakapo. Like maybe you involve 5 teams and they all play in Yorkton and you structure it as a tournament type style, but it's teams that are very close by, like an hour away. So if they don't want to stay the night, they don't have to. But the other thing that I think that does is fan interest. Like there's a lot of people in Yorkton that if they were playing the Dauphin Kings a couple times a year, they'd make sure that they go to the games. So the Swan Valley Stampeders, if they were playing the Melville Millionaires, that would generate a little bit more fan interest. So I think we do got to talk about crossing over into other leagues. And I think we do got to talk about some of these showcase events. I like what Ryan's proposing. I mean, I think, junior hockey for the most part doesn't need to be a long drawn out season. I think you could start at the 1st of October. I think you could wrap up your playoffs even by the end of February. And then if you wanted to go into what Ryan's talking about, some sort of a tier where you've got, the final 2 teams in Saskatchewan, the final 2 teams in Manitoba, the final 2 teams in Alberta, and the final 2 teams in BC, or the final 2 teams in the NA, and you want to go for a month, kind of what we saw in the bubble, 100%. 100%.
My big question to both of you then, just before we end tonight, when it comes to cross-provincial competition and the parity and the small little details and rule changes that occur, and the big one for me is the age limit and the number of 20-year-olds perhaps on a team. You see the teams, for example, like Estevan, who is hosting a championship this year, going to be rocking it with at least 8 20-year-olds on the roster because that's their max limit. And then let's say, for example, we do propose this, cross-border rivalry with the Okotoks, for example, which is a very young team, or the NO, who has a studded lineup of 05s, but they're all 05s. Do we have to worry about ages and maturities, or are we just saying, hey,
it's a hard thing to put, because you look at a league like the North American League, they don't have a 20-year-old restriction. The league's a 19 and 20-year-old league, right? Where in Canada, they keep wanting to develop these younger players. They come in and play Junior A, and then who steals them all when they're 19 and 20? The North American League, right? They're taking all the best players, and the USHL. And there's a reason for it. They go, oh, Canadian kids, good players, hockey factory up in Canada. And I could take a kid that, lives in Saskatchewan and put him on Minot, and, it's super close for him. Or do I take a kid that's from California that I really don't have a lot of experience watching because I haven't had a chance to be at every game in Kindersley to go and watch, all season, right? Like there needs to be a standard structure across the board. Every team can have X amount of 20-year-olds. Every team can do this, but it's hard to get 100 junior hockey owners in the same, meeting room to agree on stuff, because at the end of the day, it always circles back to money. And the teams go, well, I need these fans because I got to pay my bills, or I need this, I need that. And the only way that anything like this will ever work, in my opinion, is teams need to be more like the BCHL, go off and do their own thing and write their own tickets. And that's how you alleviate being stuck and pigeonholed by rules that the CGHL and the individual leagues implement that are geared towards the owners, that all they're worried about is making sure they lose not $100,000 a year. They're only losing 20, right? Like it's all business. And if somebody could write a business, because junior hockey in Canada's business model is outdated. It is from 1954, 1955, and it's never changed. And until that changes, it's never going to work. And that's my hats off to the BCHL, because they're trying to do their own thing. And I think that they're going to have tons of success because of it.
Mike, final word to you, bud.
I guess I would just say I never worry about what anybody else is doing. I just worry about what I'm doing. And I go back years ago when Kindersley lost in the national championship to Aurora. Aurora had, I think, 14 or 15, maybe even more, 20-year-olds on their team. This is when there was no cap. And right. Kindersley had 6. And Dave Hunchak and I talked about it after, and he said, for me in my program, I want to make sure that we're good each and every year. And so the best way for me to make sure that we're good every year is to make sure that I've got a set number of 18-year-olds, a set number of 19-year-olds, and a set number of 20-year-olds. Now, it's never a guarantee that your 18s and 19s are going to come back, but for continuity's sake, to make sure that you're always good, that sets you up a lot better than if you're plugged full of 20-year-olds, and then who knows what happens when they're all gone the following year. So, you run whatever program you feel you're comfortable with. You run whatever program you think makes you successful. And then if you ended up in one of these, events, and all of a sudden you're going up against a team and they're older than you, I always say, you're a year older, but are you a year better? And so I'll take, any day, I would take, top players. And if you've got a top team and you can get through the SJHL, you're a good team. And if you end up, playing a team, the North American League, and they're full of 20-year-olds, and if they beat you 14-1, well, I think you just be honest. Did they beat you 14-1 because they got 20-year-olds, or is that just a way better league and you would no business playing them? I think, sometimes we're not honest with each other. And well, not sometimes, all the time.
I can tell you, Mike, 100%, after coaching in 2 different Junior A leagues in Canada, there is a massive difference between Manitoba and the NOJHL. And there are people in the NOJHL right now, their commissioner included, that will tell you otherwise. And that's one of the biggest reasons why there will never be anybody being able to be in the room and just agree, because it's just the way that it is. And it's talent, right? Like, there's more hockey players in Saskatchewan to fill, I can't remember how many teams are in the SJ, but to fill the rosters in the SJ, plus the trickle down from Alberta, as opposed to, you're not filling 10 NOJHL teams with the kids that play in the Great North Midget AAA League. It's just not happening.
I can't remember the name of the community, but I believe it's after Marathon. And I noticed it when I was driving down to Southern Ontario in the summer. And it's right along that highway along the Great Lakes.
Hearst?
It might have been Hearst. It might have been Hearst. It's a small community.
Yeah.
And I
65, 7,000 people.
No, whatever community was even smaller than that. It was like 1,200.
Oh.
And I thought to myself, how do they even have enough?
Schreiber?
Yeah, I think it was Schreiber.
Yeah,
it might have been Schreiber. And I thought to myself, how do you even have enough?
Oh.
He was on a roll there.
He was on a big roll. Yeah. I like when Mike gets on the roll.
Mike, you got to say it again for me. You froze on us. Schreiber.
Oh, okay. So
see, he gets excited.
Bad internet. So if you're the Schreiber Diesels, how can you compete with the Fort McMurray Oil Barons?
You can't.
You can't.
The reality is
Brooks
you can't.
Bandits. Good luck.
You can't. And so that's that's why. But again, I just worry about what I'm doing. And so if I'm coaching the Schreiber Diesels and I end up in one of these events and I lose if I lose 12-1, well, again, why did I lose 12-1? You just be honest with yourself. And you see,
I don't have the horses.
If you don't have the horses, you don't have the horses. But where are we coming up short? And what do I have? That's and I think you can still evaluate properly, even though you maybe don't have that kind of success playing in that kind of a showcase event.
There are too many Junior A hockey teams, and I use the term A loosely, in Canada, and eventually, if people were smart, they would just create a tier 1, which is a no pay. Your organization cannot charge $1 other than billet fees. And then you have tier 2, which is you can use your pay to play model, no problem, hands down. And when everybody decides that that's what they want to do, and that will make Canadian junior hockey so much better. Until then, the CJHL, is my opinion, and its talent-wise will be better. But you've got your leagues out west, you've got your leagues out east, and it's no different than the 15 different divisions that the USPHL has, because the USPHL's got great divisions and good teams, and then they've got divisions that are not great, and the teams are not the best either. And that's just the reality.
There's something to be said if you wanted to create a super league in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, just have 12 teams and just go with there. I mean, it absolutely would be great.
It would be fantastic. Can you imagine, Portage, Verdun, maybe a Winnipeg team. I don't even know. And then you had like it would just 3-3-3 or what, a 4-4. Like, I don't know. But, all the teams that can draw fans, there needs to be a criteria. Draw fans, you don't charge the players, and you have a operating budget of $1 million. I don't know. I'm just throwing out a random number.
I think if you just did like a Portage, Verdun, Flin Flon, Yorkton, Battleford, Estevan, Brooks, Fort McMurray, Grand Prairie. I mean, I think we've hit all the I'm sure I've left somebody out and they're going to be upset, but
Okotoks. You better say Okotoks.
You better say the Okotoks. You better say a Regina team in there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sure. But you get the idea. You get the idea.
Exactly.
It would be great if that ever happened in hockey in Canada. And I hope that in my lifetime, I mean, I'm 38 years old. I hope in my lifetime that it does happen. My kid's 7. Maybe by the time he's playing junior hockey, maybe some, rich businessman decides to do it. I'll tell you right now, I win a Lotto Max, I'm going to start a super league in Canada, and it's going to be ran properly and done to the nines. And it's going to offer the best options for development for kids, and they're going to move on to college, and it's just going to be a Division I factory. That's basically what it's going to be.
Well, just make sure you get the wife a big house before you do your super league, because you might have a bit of an issue on the coach.
Theo, you're commish, bud.
I'm commish. There we go. Then I'm set. Done, gentlemen. You know what? We've opened up the can of worms. I mean, we talk about parity. We talk about watering down the leagues. Too many teams. I mean, we could go on and on, but I know we've got other errands and things to take care of. I want to thank you very much for coming back, boys. Fall looks big and bright, and we look forward to seeing how these teams are going to shape up. And let's hope, cross fingers, dot T's and I's, and knock on wood that players aren't on the injury list too long at the beginning, because I feel that a lot of players are going to take a bit of time to get accustomed to playing hockey again and being on the ice every day. So cheers to everybody. Thanks for joining me again, gentlemen. Coaches Parley every couple of weeks on Wednesday nights now on ASTV. Again, thanks for joining me, guys. Take care. Ryan, make sure you teach your boy how to sharpen his skates, but also
I bought a Sparks. He's learning how to do it himself.
Good. Make sure you got to tape a stick from heel to toe. Are you a heel to toe guy or a toe to heel guy?
Heel to toe for sure.
Mike, heel to toe or toe to heel?
Don't care, actually.
You don't care? Oh my
God.
Don't care. Well, I don't know about you, man. I don't know. I got one of these. So I got to show off the boys because I got the Toby stick and it doesn't even need tape. It's sticky. It's matty. And it's got some kick-ass diamond airblade technology. So That's my weapon of choice this year. And it didn't cost me $1.25, a little bit more than that, Ryan. So hold off on that. Thanks for joining me, guys. Have a great rest of the evening. Coaches Parley TV. Good night.
Welcome to Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, your world-class academic and hockey training facility created to maximize each student's athletic and academic potential. Blackjack Stewart Arena, home of the Buffalo, is inside the 46,000 square foot complex, as well as a curling rink and other facilities. The students have a unique combination of successful, well-rounded education at Pilot Mountain Collegiate Institute and the professional hockey training in an encouraging community. The years of experience of on-ice coaching propel our students to the next level, both mentally and physically, in a professional environment.